Yeah. I'm trying to think now if you want to make your next bring up the conversation next about the different spreads for your tarot cards, if you like.
Sure. Well, I should start by saying that I totally support self readings as well as getting readings done for you.
Yes.
Not many tarot readers that I'm learning, more and more tarot readers that I meet. There are less tarot readers that support self readings. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. But the reason why I support it is because that's how I started doing tarot.
Yeah.
What I began doing tarot readings simply for myself, so that I had a bit of forecast for the day, or I had a dilemma I wanted to solve, or I wanted to plan my future. So many reasons that I was using it over a long period of time. And then I didn't start giving reading. Some people would ask me, oh, can you do my reading? And I'd be like, sure. And that's when I started using those skills of self readings to do readings for others. And I found that in learning that way, I already had a huge list of associations in my head for all the different messages in the cards already established when I started giving readings to others, and then started learning new associations in a third party sense, because they weren't my readings anymore, they were readings for others. So I was able to gain more of those associations and more experience with associations much more quicker by learning self readings first. And
Okay.
I don't necessarily think that you can't, like, just like mediumship, just like being psychic, just like tarot, anyone can do it. It's really energy work and reading the energy of your client, and the way that fits with the cards, and how the messages stand out according to their like energetic feel, right? Like what draws you to it and what stands out for you. So I believe personally that anyone can learn to do it,
Well, yeah.
and which is why when I give tarot readings, I really do go through why I think the message is what it is, or I try and get into the meanings of the cards for the people so they know where the messages are coming from, not just how the messages are connected to your life, because that's up to the other people. Like, that's up to my sitter to decide how they associate with the messages.
Yeah.
um, so that being said, bringing it back to the different spreads, there are different associations for different spreads depending on how the cards land, right? Like, the one card can have different meanings depending on what position it's in. So for example, if you're doing a past, present, future spread, which is just a 3 card draw, drawing 3 cards, 1, 2, 3, the first card is past, the second card's present, the third card's future. You can take the same card and put it into the different positions and have different messages. So for example, the Ace of Cups is about discovering a new emotion, right? Aces are about something new, or discovering a new path, or something coming out of nowhere. Like, even when you look at the images of an ace, they usually have the symbol or suit coming out of the clouds, or mysteriously appearing in some way or another. And because it usually means like beginning a new path or journey. And cups represent emotion. So if you had that in your past, if you had an Ace of Cups in the past position, that would mean that you've already gone through some sort of discovery of emotion, right? If it's in the present, it means that you're now discovering
Oh, I love
that emotion. And if it's in the future, you haven't discovered it yet. So that simple past,
that.
present, future can slightly tweak the message. And then that is also goes hand in hand with more complicated spreads, where it really depends. Sometimes the cards around other cards can change its meaning slightly, right? Like 2 cards together can give a message together if they connect, depending on the spreads that you use. So there's lots of different ways that you can read the same card,
Well, that's great.
depending on what your intention is. And so you choose the spread based on that itself, what your intention is. So is your intention to analyze something about today, and you want to see how the past affected today and where it's leading, then you could do a 3 card pull of past, present, future. If you wanted to more analyze your day, like how your day's going, I can do I personally do like a pyramid spread. It's I call it more a triangle, but it's like a 6-card pull that has 3 at the base, 2 cards, and then 1 card at the top. And it's really based on like past, present, future for the first 3 cards, and then this next 2 cards in above that is the subject of the day, like the real meaning of the day or what you're really going through, and then what works against you today is the card beside that. And
Okay.
then the last card at the very top is like advice that you could adhere to get through your day if it was challenging or a struggle. And so I find that very helpful to do in the morning when my day starts, and it gives me sort of a forecast of my day. I know what to expect coming forward. And if there's anything that I may not totally understand, I'll leave the spread out and then come back to it at the end of the day and look at it and be like, okay, that's what you meant. Or, there's what that was about. When I didn't understand it this morning, had to go through it to figure out exactly what you meant. Or a lot of times I'm able to be guided through my day. Like I one time did an event. I was managing a building for a company. They rented it, and they were doing like a production company. And so they were filming and recording and doing all sorts of stuff. And I was just helping them manage the building. And I had to get COVID tested because, all the procedures that have now been created and everything to make sure everyone's safe. And my tarot spread told me in the morning that the suggestion was to find, it was the King of Pentacles, which tells me that the suggestion was a dark-haired, dark-eyed person, specifically a man.
Okay.
So when I got there, I scanned through the crowd and saw a dark-haired, dark-eyed person helping people. I went directly to him and found out that I skipped the process of going through this long, like, I sort of took a shortcut without realizing that I did, and I was able to get through my day a lot easier. And I was like, thank you, tarot.
Yes, when you meet if you can know you meet the right person, and that's awesome. Yeah, I'm like that too. If I can find the right, I'm just gonna go right up there because I don't want to waste these 7 other steps. That's awesome. Yeah.
So I mean, there's different ways that you can use it and read the cards, and different ways that you can connect with the cards too. Like the cards can represent my intention and perspective. It can represent someone else's, like say if I was doing a reading for you, it could represent your intention and perspective. It can represent a general public perspective, like when we go through an astrological effect, or like a retrograde, or different moon phases and different zodiac signs that correspond. You can use tarot to get a sense of those energies as well. And that's more of a general reading. And then the different ways that you can look at things and analyze. And it's just the options are really endless, as long as you can connect with the intention before you start pulling out the cards. That's really the key. And that's what talks to, like, you charge the cards with that intention as you're shuffling. I've even used tarot cards to do spirit work with mediumship, where as I'm shuffling, I'm connecting with spirit and requesting that spirit put the cards in the right order and use me to do that. So that when I feel intuitively that I am being told to stop shuffling, the cards are in the right order. And then we look at the messages that came out and how that corresponds with what my client wanted to know from the spirit. There's lots of different ways that you can use tarot rather than just the traditional tarot reading.
Exactly. And that's what I've learned from you. There's like so many spreads, so many ways to bring forth, set your attention in different ways to get answers. And it's like, and then how a lot of them connected, that was like, whoa, that was like that fascinating.
The spreads don't have to be structured. I mean, they do while you're shuffling. While you're shuffling and you're charging the cards, you must have the intention in your charge, right? And you have to charge the cards with that energy. And so as long as you have the intention in your head that, okay, my first card means A, my second card means B, and my third card means C, and et cetera, that's the intention that you go by. That's how the spread is going, and the tarot reading is going to work out based on that.
Intuition coming through. And what else I need to share about this also is our our hands and our feet are so our receptors, and they're meant to receive, to feel so many things in our life. And I saw something the other day explaining about how the things that are that what our hands can do. And when I think of our energetic intuition, just going in, just touching, why we feel those shifts when we're saying, okay, this one, I feel this one, I'm going to pick this card. There's so much more going on. It's so friggin' fascinating with our human body, our energy field, the magnetic field, the connections, receptors in our hands. It's amazing. It's how it all goes together. I just love all sharing all that stuff. There's so much more that's going on, and that's amazing. So when you dive in deep about how our human body and our energy field is guiding and shifting us and moving forward in our life. Yeah.
I totally believe that. I mean, I've been gifted tarot decks. People who just didn't connect with the deck, they used it, they didn't connect with it, and they were like, I want to find it a new home. So they rehomed it, they offered it to me. I purchased it from them, and right away, I have to cleanse and clear the previous energy of that deck before I can even start working with it. Because as soon as I start working with it, I connect with the energy of the deck as they were charged previously. And so I get these feelings and emotions and connections that are not connected to my reading. And so I have to, like, you have to make sure that you personalize the deck with your energy and create a relationship with each of the cards in order to use them properly, or have them work for you, I should say.
I love that. Yes, the intention and our energy of everything is like, once again, there's something I tell people, there's no words that explain how, like, what our energy and intentions, how truly they work in our lives. It's amazing. Yeah. It's totally. And so now if you want to describe the different spreads in more detail, and maybe we'll just, if you want, for fun, do you want to do a little spread on me tonight just as we get going?
Yeah, sure.
We'll see if anybody else wants to show up and say anything, but I'm not seeing anything yet. So
the way that I measure out what works best with which spread depends on quite a few things. The first thing it depends on is the type of reading that's requested, because I know what spreads I can fit into like a 15-minute time period versus a half an hour time period versus an hour.
okay, yes.
So there are smaller spreads, which are about 1 to 6, sometimes 9 cards. And then anything 9 plus would be a larger spread that takes a little more time to get through. And then there are even spreads that have like 30 or more cards that you can go through. And an example of that would be a very large spread would be like a year forecast. You know, if you're looking for specific things in each month for the next, like, say, 6 months. I think I've done that on one of my lives recently, but you're
really
going to
amazing.
use a lot of cards to come up with all of those meanings. I can do a 13 moon cycle prediction spread, which is basically 13 cards. It's just in a circle, and it represents each card will represent the forecast for between each full moon moving forward for the next 13 moons. So
Oh my God, I love
by
that.
looking at it that way, you get a year forecast of what you're going to go through within the year and the energies you're going to be experiencing. And that can be helpful for people who, like, maybe are creating like a business plan, and they know that, you know, there's a lot of travel involved or whatever, like their plans for the next year. And then that's one way of looking at it, where you can gain perspective and insight by what's drawn out of you when you look at how the messages come out in the cards. An example of a 10 plus, which is like it would take, like, that would take me an hour to get through. An example of like a half-hour reading, I can do full readings in a half hour. So an example of a full reading would be like a Celtic Crooks spread, which is a very most commonly used spread in tarot. And it's called a Celtic crux because of the shape of it. So you have sort of a cross shape with a staff, like a line of cards on the side. And in the crux itself, in the cross shape, you're looking at the subject, and then what works against you in the reading, and then what grounds you, which would be below, behind you, which is your past, above you would be like what's could happen, and then in front of you is what will happen. So you can kind of determine that there's options, or you can see if there are even options, or how you're approaching the future. And then I'll look at my clients' fears, what they fear about the subject of the reading, the opinions of loved ones and friends around them, and then their hopes. What do they hope? And then I'll go through a conclusion of the reading. And
Is that
usually when I do a full reading, my conclusions draw out in a path. So that means that I will continue, I'll draw out several cards until I'm told to stop. Usually it's a higher arcana card that intuitively tells me to stop. And I will read each card, and the cards, each time that I've done it, describe the path that my client or sitter went through to find their way through like what they're going through in the reading. So that can be helpful in analyzing, because if you can recognize where you are on the path, then you can understand what you've been through and what's to come based on the cards that you don't recognize yet. So it gives you sort of that forecast on how to achieve the outcome that you're hoping for in the full reading. And then an example of a shorter reading, like that takes 15 minutes, would be more like the day spread. I did a dilemma spread for you, Melissa, I think, which was a 9-card spread that focuses on like a challenge that you go through. I find that to be a popular and very useful tool, that spread, simply because there are so many ways that we face obstacles and challenges in our lives. And sometimes tarot can be tricky to ask to get the right answers. So if you ask a general question, you're going to get a general answer. So often I won't try to influence the person who has a question, but I will offer a rephrase if it helps clarify or get more to the point of what the reading, like what they want the reading to be about. One example would be like readings on love and relationship. Love and relationship is so hard to predict, because there are so many options and choices and actions that can be taken between now and the time that you meet the person that you were longing for, or how the relationship is going to work out, or whatever you're asking in terms of love and relationships. And so certain spreads can help get the better details out of what the person I'm reading for wants to know. So for example, if someone came up to me and wanted to do a love and relationship, I wouldn't suggest a full crux,
no.
because it's going to give them way more information than what they need and have asked for. And it will probably touch on other issues that they're having in other areas of their life, as opposed to the specific question that they've asked for. So sometimes the different spreads can help you determine like what you're looking for out of the reading. Does that make sense?
Yep. And Kimberly's here. She's also trying to bring a friend in, but I have to try to do that another way. So would you like to Kimberly's already agreed she would love a reading. So I'm thinking the 15-minute one.
Sure.
So Kimberly, as we're chatting, I'm going to ask you if you have a question for Bryan to do a spread. We're going to do a 15-minute one, right?
It could be a question or a general topic, or it can be left general, because quite often I've given very personal readings, and sometimes the person who I'm giving readings for, their situation is so personal, they don't want to discuss it with me. I'm practically a stranger if they just met me. And if they've only come to me a couple times, they may not be comfortable to give me the nitty-gritty details of their, relationship issues or whatever they're dealing with personally. And so quite often they just say, okay, I just like a reading, keep it general. And the messages will come out in the cards, because the messages delivered really are always what needs to be heard.
Beautiful. So it's Kimberly Murdoch, and we also have Kim Alexander. We got two Kims. Hey, Kim, both Kims. So I'm going to go back up to Kimberly Murdoch. I'm looking at the messages now, Kim. If you want to go ahead and ask that question, ask a question. If once again, just like Bryan said, you can make it specific or more general, whatever you feel more comfortable. I
And
have
you don't
lots
have to share a lot of information. Just the
of
question that you're asking will be enough. And I
spirit.
will try and connect with that energy from, like, say, if we start with Kim, I'll try and connect with Kim's energy to allow the cards to give us the details that Kim will connect with, not me. I may not connect with the messages. People that are listening may not connect with the messages, but the messages will be directed for Kim.
Yes, so Kim Murdoch, because we've got two Kims here. So Kim Murdoch, go ahead and ask your question if you've thought about it. She goes, I do have a lot of issues. So pick one, and then we'll give that to Bryan, and he can start his spread here for you.
Sure. Now I'm going to change my camera view. What I like to do is I really like to share the cards when I do readings for people, because like I said, sometimes the messages can be more clear for the person I'm giving readings for than for myself. It's kind of similar to mediumship where, you get a message and you're like, what does that mean? And I ask my sitter and they're like, well, that means this, right?
Exactly.
So I like to show the cards because quite often the comments that I get from people sometimes when they look at my cards is, I dreamt that, or that's important to me because of this. And I wouldn't be able to connect with any of that information, but because I showed them the imagery, it was more profound for them.
Right on par. Yeah.
And so I have found that sometimes messages in the cards just need to be delivered. And even when a card like falls out accidentally, I will still use that and say, okay, this is a message that needs to be delivered. Here's the message. And it's up to them to make the connection on how they relate that to their lives.
Kim does have a question. And once again, I know you said you might help someone rephrase it in case they need help rephrasing it. I'm just going to put a sheet out to Dina as well. Hi, Dina, darling. Glad you're hopped on here. Kimberly Murdoch's question is, will I find love? Now, is that something you want to leave it like that, or would you want to encourage her to rephrase that?
If because of the wording in that, was it when or will?
Now she wrote career path as well. So which you want, love or career path? She's given out another.
I'll just talk about this for a moment because it is interesting. I'll put my camera back down.
Give us yays or nays, Kimberly Murdoch. Okay.
This is a really good example on when I would use like a dilemma spread, because if you felt like it was a challenge finding love and your question was based on will I find love and you're expecting a yes or no, tarot very rarely gives you a direct yes or no. It'll give you the information you needed in order to know where you're going or to make that decision for yourself. So if you feel that it's a dilemma or a challenge for you to answer that question, will I find love? Then quite often I'll fit that into a dilemma spread, because it will give you the advice that you need to adhere to solve the challenge. So in a way, it tells you what you need to do to find love, not necessarily the answer to like, yes, you're going to find this person. He's going to look like this with this name. Like, it's not that specific.
Are you in agreement there, Kimberly? I like that. That's the type of, and I totally agree. Even with when I work with the Akashic records and such, there's specific questions we ask to find your journey about it. Yeah. Dilemma spread sounds great. So, all right, here we go. We're going to get all set up here for you, Kimberly.
Okay. So I'll just switch my camera view quickly.
Oh yes, it's cool how Bryan does do this. You're going to see your spread. This is amazing.
Okay, Kim, so I always start with a one card impression pull from this deck. As you may have heard earlier when we were talking about me as a tarot reader, I work with several tarot decks at a time. So you can see I keep a lot of oracle decks at the side, and I do my main readings with two decks. One is the Morgan Greer deck that I like to do readings for others with, just because their graphics are a bit more calming and relaxing. And this one is the Rider-Waite Smith deck. And it's like the standard, more generally used tarot deck. And I've used this one the longest. I've had actually this one since I was 12 years old. So I'm just going to pull one card from this deck. I'm just going to shuffle, connecting with try to connect with your energy on the call. Whoop. So see how that just flipped out on its own? That's what I call like a flipper card. It's similar to like a card that just falls out. And so I have to go by that message. And the message for you, Kim, is the 6 of Wands. It did not come out reversed. And what this is telling me is that you have something to champion. You have this like action that you've taken and you're championing it. And this action is different from the other actions around. And I see that message in this card because wands represent actions. 7 is like when you can feel really good about yourself. It's like a spiritual number in numerology. It's very when you connect with yourself. And you can see from the image here that this person is almost on a parade. You know, they're on their sort of high horse and they have this wreath showing that they're celebrating something or they're championing something. And so that's where it gives me this impression that for you, Kim, you have this like something that you're really proud of that you've done. And that's the energy that you're in right now. So you may feel proud for how you've handled your situation, or you may feel like that you can, you have what it takes to move forward. Like you can champion it, you can champion yourself in some way. So I'll move on with this deck now. And this is when I will focus on your questions. So will you find love, right? And I'm going to do the dilemma spread because as I've said, I find that it helps. It won't give you the exact answer of yes or no, but it will tell you how to get to your yes. And quite often it can even point out if it's kind of saying that it's a no, you can look at the changes you can make to move forward to go back to a yes. Because even though cards may fall out or come out into a spread, cards are never, just like how the future isn't solid, cards can be flipped around because you have to make the choices moving forward into the future that change the outcome.
That's so cool. Yep.
So I'm just splitting the cards into 3. I'm going to do that 3 times. There we go. So the first card that came out for you, Kim, is the, again, this is really interesting because it's the exact same card that came out for your initial energy, but it's reversed. So what that's telling me is that you may not believe this, right? You have this ability, you have this something to champion, you have something that you've done that you can feel proud of. And part of the problem of the dilemma is that you don't champion yourself. It could be that you may not have confidence, or it could be that you have confidence but you're shy, or that you don't you're not going to wear your accomplishments on the outside, right? You're not going to boast. And that's part of the problem. I think you may want to consider turning this card around so that you can feel proud of yourself. You can champion that whatever's happening for you.
I love that.
The advice for that, how do you do that, is to not feel overwhelmed. This is the 7 of Cups card. It is reversed. Normally, if it was like this, I would say that you are overwhelmed or that the advice is to look at all the options, but it's reversed. So what it's telling me, because it's in a suggestion position to what you're dealing with in this problem, don't feel overwhelmed. Try to calm down, try to be focused, try to try to narrow in on what it is you need to accomplish. The environment of this challenge or dilemma for you, Kim, is the Ace of Swords reversed. So part of the challenge in the environment for you is that you can't think straight, or you're not thinking the right way, or these new ways of thinking just are not materializing. The advice for that is to really stop thinking. This is the Queen of Swords, and it represents when the card comes out like this, swords represent heavy thoughts and intellect, and the queen is like somebody who, when you think of the position of the queen in the court, they sit on the throne, they make decisions in the best interest of others. And so it's really about like making these carrying decisions in the best interest of others. When it's reversed like this, it means that you're either prevented from doing it or to stop doing it. And because this is a suggestion position, I really feel like the suggestion is to stop like putting this on your head. Stop thinking so, like, this is like swords represent strong intellectual thoughts. And so if a card is suggesting to stop thinking about something, it probably means that you're putting too much on you, in terms of like, if you're blaming yourself, or if you are not encouraging yourself, or you're coming up with discouraging things to say, or think, that it's saying like, cut it out. And then the problem itself. Now, this I would consider the column for your dilemma or challenge itself, which would be your question. So, will you find love? And the problem involved in that is that you don't feel like you're going to reap the reward of what you've harvested. Normally the card looks like this, and it would represent reaping the reward of what you harvest. It represents sort of sowing your seeds and planting them and taking care of them. And eventually you have to wait for your product to grow and produce fruit, and then you can harvest. But you're not there. When it's reversed like this, it means that you don't see the potential. And that's part of the problem of it. Now, the advice for that is to, is the death card reversed. Now, don't let this card fool you. It doesn't mean mortality or like life and death. What it means usually is that something has to, when the card looks like this, it means that something has to drastically change. We're talking like, in order for something to begin, something has to end. When it's reversed like this, it's suggesting not to change. So the advice here is not like hold your gut, like stick to your guns, stand your ground. Really don't fall for the change that you think is necessary. You don't have to change yourself in this. Okay. So we've looked at the description of the problem and the advice. When I look at the description altogether, the real struggle in this is not championing yourself, not looking at or thinking about this differently, and not feeling like you're going to reap the rewards. Notice that all the cards are reversed.
Mhm.
This is telling me that this is a challenging path, that this is not an easy thing to go through. And for you, I really feel like these cards are flippable, all three of them. Like if you just believe in yourself and champion yourself for who you are, this card will flip around. If you find a new way of thinking about the situation, that card will flip around, right? Like it's all about how you want to proceed forward into the future. So the next three cards that I'm going to pull is basically the action or tool that's needed in order to follow through with the advice to take on that challenge, okay? So in terms of for you, Kim, individually, the action or tool that needs to go through to stop being overwhelmed is stop saying to yourself, what if? I like to call this the what if card. Normally it looks like this, and the 4 is like foundation and grounding. Cups are emotion, and you can see that the 4th cup is sort of coming out of the clouds, similar to an ace. So this person is grounded, they're secured, they're very, earthy, and they have these 3 cups. They have these like sets of emotion that they understand, and then there's this other one coming out of the clouds, and this is like what if. You know what you, and then you're looking at like, what if I had something else, or what if I made that decision differently? When it's reversed like this, it's pretty much saying to like cut it out, like stop saying what if. And that's going to help you not feel overwhelmed in order to champion yourself. The advice for the environment in the dilemma is to really, this is a really interesting card to come out in the action or tool that's needed. What it's saying to me is that you don't need to sort out your emotions. You know exactly how you feel about this, Kim. You know exactly what you want out of this. If it was this way, I would say that the advice would be to sort out your emotions. If you notice from the image, this person has their cups. Cups represent emotion. 9 is leading towards the end of a path or finding your way to the end of a solution. And this person's pretty happy with all of their emotions in a row. They understand where their emotions are, how they feel. They have them in the right order. when it's reversed like this, it just means that it doesn't mean that you don't have your cups in a row, but that you don't need to figure this out. You don't need to put all your cups in a row. They already are. Okay. So if you stop second guessing yourself, that will stop putting the heavy thoughts on your head, and you'll be able to turn this card around and start thinking differently. Then the last card is the action or tool that's needed for the solution itself. And what came out is the Page of Cups reversed. Now, what this tells me is that this is like the no bullshit card when it comes out like this. Normally the card looks like this, and this would be like silliness, possibly immaturity, or just foolishness, or not taking things really seriously as you should. And when it's reversed like this, it's the other way around. You are being serious. You're not wanting it to, like, you're not going to deal with the silliness. You're going to get down to task. And I feel like that's what's needed in order for you to decide or realize that you don't need to make that change. And that's going to help you realize that you can actually reap the reward of what you've put into this. Another thing I noticed when I look at this reading as a whole, every single card is reversed. And even though there are positive messages that come out of this, some of these reversed cards, it is still something that this tells me is heavy on your mind. This is hard to go through. This is a difficult question to analyze, and just be patient with yourself. Take your time. I really feel like if you're able to turn some of these cards around, even if it's how you feel about yourself, you're going to notice much more positivity, less negativity about this subject or topic, and you may find that it all just starts coming together.
Wow, that was cool. I'm going to say, how are you feeling, Kimberly? Where are you? Hang on.
So let me know, Kimberly, if you resonate with those messages, if you feel like the description of your challenge or dilemma is accurate, and if you agree with the advice, or if you can see the action or tool that's needed in regards to that.
How do you feel about that, Kimberly? So far, I got a thanks. Let's see. How do you feel that resonated with you, my dear? So amazing. Yes, absolutely. That's great.
Okay.
Super duper.
Did she have any last questions before I collect the cards and decharge and thank them?
Do you have any questions for Bryan here? And if so, I see a yes. So true. Do you have any questions for Bryan?
I think one of the things that stand out for me most, Kim, that I just want to comment on is these two cards being the same and this card being reversed. That you're in this position now, like you have this like actions that you can champion, but part of the problem is that you're not championing yourself, or that you're not championing the actions. So that could be the first thing that could be flipped around or worked on, and all of this other stuff may just come into line,
Okay, awesome. Okay. Okay, thanks, Dina. Dina's saying good night, Megan. So, well, Kimberly Murdoch, yes, when? Yes, about I'm trying to see what yes, when. Are you back to when about love, or Kimberly?
I really think that given how the cards have come out, in terms of when is really going to depend on when you change the way you're thinking about this and follow through with this advice. If it takes you a while to sort out, like if you right away, Kim, can stop saying what if, stop second guessing your emotions, and be serious about it, that right away is going to move you forward and propel you into a solution.
Awesome. Now, also, Dina has Dina also asked, what's the name of the cards? What, Kimberly Murdoch? No, it is okay. Thank you. Okay. Awesome. She's good. No more questions. Okay.
So I'll put the cards away.
What's the name of the decks again? Dina's asked the name of the deck.
Yeah. And I can quickly flip through them to show you that the difference between the two decks.
What are the name of the decks again there, Brian? That's what Dina's
This
asking.
one here is the Morgan Greer deck.
Morgan Greer deck,
Yeah,
okay.
and it follows the same symbolisms and imagery as the standard Rider-Waite deck. But as you can see, it's much more colorful, much more modern looking. And I find them more comfortable and relaxing to look at when I'm doing readings for others, as opposed to like the very starchy standard kind of tarot, which is a little harder to look at. They're not as calming, but they have the same messages and very similar messages and symbolisms to them.
So the Rider-Waite deck is the one to the left and the one to the right is the Morgan
Greer.
Morgan Greer. Okay, there you go, ladies and gents. There's and the name of the decks there.
Where I go to get my decks is at a store in town called the Ninth Vibration. They have an amazing selection of decks, and that's actually where I bought my Morgan Greer deck, and then I've collected decks over the years.
I know they're so pretty. Look at all that. I love how you have them charged with crystals. That's your quartz crystals on top, right?
Yes, they are.
That's amazing. And crystals are so amazing, guys. They hold and store so much vibrational energy and information. That's awesome too.
So I'm just decharging and thanking these decks. And
Alright.
then I don't know if I can give another, I don't know how much time we have, but if
No,
there's time for
it's
another
almost, I
example
think
of
it's
it.
already after 9, so I think we're yeah. Oopsie, trying to doopsie. Yeah, whoop. Other messages are coming, notifications are coming through. Yeah, we're already getting on there.
Come back on.
I want to say thank you for showing that. That was amazing. I love to see your decks like that. You're gonna have to do another one for me, Brian. Like we gotta get, this is like, you're inspiring me for another reading now. We might have to stay on the line later tonight. You do a quick one for me. After I tell you about what's going on, you might understand more because there's something else I gotta explain, but very privately. So thank you again, and thank you, Kimberly, for being brave to come out and ask those questions tonight.
Thank you, Kimberly, for letting me do your reading.